Thank you, Dirk, and thank you everybody for inviting us here and for such a lovely venue and amazing hospitality. So I'm here today with Fiona McKenna, Carl Gleeson, the manager of the Burn Cliffs of Moher UNESCO Global Geopark, and Deirdre Byrne, the staff researcher from the INSO Observatory. Fiona, who's going to be talking after me, is the Sustainable Destination Development Officer for County Clare. And I think her job came immediately out of INSTO and the whole transition and where we're going. So what I'm going to talk to you today is an update. Oh. Maybe you can, it's not. Yep. So this is where we are. We're, back one. Yeah. We're on the west coast of Ireland, and we run down the whole Atlantic seaboard, and we work with numerous destinations. Those little yellow dots out there are islands that we work with that would have, probably some of them would only have 100 residents living on them, who really, if you want to see the impacts of tourism, go to an island. Okay, you immediately see water, you see waste, you see it all right there in front of you. So we work with those, and we work very closely with County Clare, who are on their journey to become the first certified sustainable tourism destination in Ireland. So we work to collaborate, inform, and contribute to sustainable destination management. Can you move on to that, maybe? Oh, there we go. So this is our kind of report on what we've been doing. We were launched, became a new INSTO member last year, and we had our launch in Ireland, and thank you to the UN for supporting us and coming to our launch, which is very important. We also launched our Observatory website, and we also set up our stakeholder working group, which is important for us going forward. So what we're here to do, what we've been asked to talk today, is about research on carbon emissions and work streams. So I've been working around carbon for about 5 years, and we measured the carbon footprint of tourism in Ireland about 2 years ago and produced the report, and it looked at every single aspect of carbon from tourism within the island. And while we were using that, we looked at the indicators that existed, the EDIS indicators, and problems and issues around that, and we had to change them. So the principal area that we looked at was visitor transport to and within the island. Because we're an island, we have a real issue. People getting to us are coming predominantly by air, so we're going to be impacted by that. Then our enterprise indicators, so what our enterprises are using on the ground, their energy, their waste, anything that contributes from scope 1, 2, or 3 into their carbon footprint. So we measured all of that. And then we had within County Clare an existing code of practice for sustainable tourism, which was an amazing tool to be able to work with on looking at that and how we actually change behavior of enterprise and businesses. So this is the EDIS indicator. You might be aware of that, and what it was a very blunt tool, and it looked at the average carbon footprint of international tourists and same-day visitors traveling from their home to the destination. It wasn't very suitable for us, so we had to change it and adapt it. So what we designed was a market-based one. So we adapted the methodology, the carbon emissions per market, to monitor risk value of each market segment against emissions. So that could be used for maybe the future and the promotion and where we're going. So you can see the US market there. It's in kilograms of CO2 equivalent. It's over 2,000 kilograms for the average US visitor to Ireland. It's a huge footprint, and they are one of our big source markets. So are we putting ourselves at risk in the future? Our biggest market is the British market. You can see it's less than 500 kilograms equivalent of carbon for the average visitor. That's their flight or their ferry, their accommodation, all added up, their transport, their food, their activities within that. We have Germany, domestic, and Northern Ireland, but we had to this was for the island. So it was quite a general thing, but we had to then design something for destinations to help them in their decision making. So we started collecting data from the visitors. We used a QR code, and these are 2 different destinations we collected data with, and then the questions we asked them, we're willing to share them with you so we could design the carbon footprint to make sure it was useful for them. So where did they come from? What was the nearest town or city? What airport did they fly from? What transport did they use when they got to Ireland? And then what transport did they use in the destination? How long they stayed for? Lots of questions so we could calculate their carbon footprint within that. Then we're able to give dashboards back and compare, say this is County Clare, so this is the transportation for visitors to get to County Clare, airplane and car being the #1 for international visitors, and then the transport around Clare. So we could see where the weaknesses were for the destination. And you can see down there, cycling's quite low, public transport's quite low, all the soft mobility side. So how are people traveling around within the destination, which all impacts on their carbon footprint. So we're able to give that sort of data back as evidence to the policymakers within the municipality. And then we were able to compare the visitor's carbon footprint to Ireland and the destination. So within each destination, so here's Clare, the average carbon footprint based on average length of stay for a US visitor to Clare was 600 kilograms of carbon. So they can use that information for evidence-based planning on what they want to do in the future. So what's going to happen in the future? Are they going to cap flights? Okay, so I don't know if anybody knows, but we've had a cap on Dublin Airport in Ireland. The government put a cap on it. So is this something you're all going to be facing? We had the farmers, our friends, drive to Cork Airport in their tractors and say, stop looking at us and telling us to reduce our carbon emissions and reduce our herd when there's the elephant in the sky. Look at the carbon over our heads. We don't want to be in conflict with our farmers. They're our friends, they're our family, they're our destination. So we have to show we're responsible as well. So are we going to transition towards value rather than volume? Are we going to say, let's increase people coming to our destination who are staying longer and decrease the short one-day flights for stag nights, for football matches, whatever? And is that where our future is? But it's up to you to decide and look at that. But with these calculations and these instruments, you can measure and monitor that. But that's the reality of where we are in Ireland. We have, and the person who imposed the cap wasn't the minister, wasn't the tourism board, but it was the municipality, the planning authority. So they have the ultimate power, and they're the people who grant planning permission for airports, for runways, for hotels. They're the ones who actually, it's under their regulation that's there, and they've asked for intervention, but that hasn't happened because you keep politics separate to planning. Hopefully, we all do that. Anyway, so that was an interesting sort of comparison, and we use all scopes. We'll share the methodology with you if anybody wants it, but quite important to be able to have the evidence to future-proof you and your destination, and to go, what is your average length of stay in your destination? Can you increase that? What do we want to do? So I'm going to let Fiona pop in now, and she'll talk about the cap. There you go.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Fiona. Thanks for having me today. As James mentioned, there is a cap at Dublin Airport. It's not because of emissions, it's because of something else. Old planning instrument, the roads around the airport. However, it has meant that next summer, there's going to have to be 1 million passengers less at the airport. Now it's in mainstream discussion in the news. What is the impact? If they'd actually done this beforehand, maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation, but now they're going to have to reduce next year by 1 million. And they've estimated that the cost to the Irish tourism sector will be 500 million next year. They probably will hire the cap. They just have to resubmit planning permission. But it is actually causing discussions in mainstream news, media, on the streets. Now it's at the forefront. You do have environmentalists that say, hey, why are we reducing emissions? Why are you upping the cap? If we have to reduce, why aren't you? We also have conflicting interests in the background. Tourism Ireland, which is our marketing agency for the country, for next year, they've increased their budget to 61.4 million, and they're looking to increase revenue every year to 2030 by 5.6%. Our Irish Tourism Industry Confederation are asking Ireland to basically align all the island nations in Europe to be considered together as a whole to look for solutions in this. So interesting space. This is conversations that we would be having on the ground, but now it's actually in the national news, which is really interesting. Watch the space, we'll see what happens. So what we can control. The cap obviously does have an impact on our destination in County Clare. Over 83% of all flights into Dublin, into Ireland come through Dublin, so it will impact us. So on the ground, we've actually kind of surveyed a lot of the Clare businesses on their energy use. So we have essentially 22% are now using renewable energy, a lot of work to 2030, a lot of work to 2050. We did ask them what kind of energy uses they were using, mostly electricity, heating oil, natural gas, LPG, firewood, diesel. A lot of enterprises we found were actually doing climate change mitigation measures, so over 72%. And then adaptation measures were around 53, so a little bit less. So I'll hand you over to Carol Gleeson.
So thank you very much, Fiona. So I'm the manager of the UNESCO Global Geopark for the Burn and Cliffs of Moher region within County Clare. So County Clare is the main administrative unit, and we are a destination within that administrative unit. But what we're trying to do now is make the destination of County Clare the certified sustainable destination. But for many years, since actually even before 2016, we had a EU LIFE project, an environmental project by which, and one of the outcomes of that environmental project was to create this code of practice for sustainable tourism, which is a measurement tool for tourism businesses. And one of the reasons why we went down that route ourselves is because we piloted several certification programs, well-established certification programs, and we found that a lot of tourism businesses felt they hadn't the capacity to actually deal with these certification programs because they were very onerous, they felt, and they were expensive, etc., etc. So we felt these, at the moment, back in 2013, 2012, we felt the certification programs actually didn't suit a lot of businesses because we were dealing with a lot of small businesses. So we created, with this EU funding, our own bespoke solution. And the bespoke solution was to have this measurement tool that not only dealt with large hotels, but also with small bed and breakfasts, and even with tour guides, individual businesses, small businesses. So this was designed as an entry point into certification. But we've been on a very interesting journey with it. We've actually, we've had over 100 businesses in our small destination, at least about 120 businesses that have gone through the code of practice. But we maintain about 60 on average that kind of stay active in the code at any one time. And we also discovered that we really had to incentivize people, businesses, even though this code of practice was like a management tool. That's how we designed it. We said this will save you money. This will be a very good way of promoting yourself. It will give you capital, marketing capital, etc. And we did a lot of course and an awful lot of training on how you could tell your sustainable tourism journey. However, the real incentive was that this was a membership criteria for a network of businesses which was very marketing orientated. So that was actually the incentive. So the other thing that we did with this particular code was we had a third party evaluated. And when I say we, I mean Clare County Council. So we paid for everything. We paid for the training, we paid for the mentoring, we paid for the online system, which you logged in. We maintained that online system. We upgraded on a regular basis, etc. And we have a third party verified. So we pay for the evaluation as well. And we even pay for the awards night. So we award them. There's a kind of a variety of different scoring. So we give special awards for the people who achieve the highest score. And we also acknowledge everybody else who's gone through the system, obviously. And you can fail. You can fail in the system. So could I have the next slide, please? I'm not sure which one works. Is it this? Oh yeah, so just very quickly, this is our online system, and they have to input all of their you know, the number of staff that they have, the number of visitors, the number of bed nights, the amount of energy they're using, all of their consumption data. Plus, they also have to provide evidence for social contributions, for, you know, any environmental activities that they undertake or that they support, etc. So it's not just economic and consumption data, but it's also their contributions to their their contributions to their community, how they support their community, how much local produce, etc., they purchase. So that's really important. But we also have this system whereby we can automatically measure their carbon footprint. And we were using the Environmental Protection Agency's calculator up until recently, but then it was updated. And I like what you were saying about it having to be dynamic. It really has to be dynamic. And ATU Sligo on the Insto, the Observatory, did a lot of research on that, and we changed the calculation. So it's as up to date as we possibly can be. So that's where we're at right now. And what we want to do, we've shown this to the GSTC. We want to spread this county-wide to all of the businesses and make it available to all of the businesses in County Clare. And the GSTC said that with some tweaks, we could actually have it as a recognized by the GSTC, which was a very exciting development for us. So thank you.
Sorry, we're not over yet. Sorry. I'll keep it quick. Lessons learned, watch your emission factor continuously. As mentioned before, be dynamic. Communicate and over-communicate results. Share data publicly for carbon emissions. Not measuring or discussion carbon emissions in plans and action plans may result in non-engagement or people just glazing over it when they see that you're not actually looking at these aspects. I've been cut off. Okay, I'm back. Hello. Okay, I'm back. Collecting enterprise carbon footprint kind of indicators we find is extremely difficult. I think we've all kind of come to that conclusion. We find that a lot of the large enterprises, hotels, large attractions, they do have someone on call that could sit down for half an hour, and kind of fill out information. Anyone smaller, your kind of mom with kids who has a small cafe, you're not really going to grab them and give them. They don't have the time, they don't have the resources. So we're kind of looking at this new system. We're looking at building in wins, incentivizing it, network opportunities, and we're looking to integrate it to get grants out of the back of it. And you have to go through the system to get the grant. And I'll give you to James for the future and next steps.
Thanks. Okay. So I suppose the next steps is the certification of the destination within there with GSTC, and that's a massive, they're nearly finished their process of their audit, and they expect to probably be awarded that next February. So it's so huge transparency. The biggest thing within this is when we were collecting data from the enterprises and from the community, we wanted to see the actions in it. So we designed it so they could see their comments from their resident survey, their comments within the enterprise survey. They could see the actions that were taking place within it. They could see the process and where they fitted within it. Because a lot of the time you take part in it and you don't see where it goes. So that's probably one of the big things, is strengthening that stakeholder working group. And one thing that wasn't mentioned today, which is really being funded and supported by Clare County Council, is the green team. So they have a green team that's got over 30, it's a small destination, but they have a green team that's over 35 or 36 people, National Parks and Wildlife, the Office of Public Works, the climate change officers, the local politicians, the hotel owners, the attraction owners. They all sit on this and they look at the data and they make the decisions on where we're going. And then those decisions are put into a risk register, put into a policy document, and that creates the actions within the destination. So you don't just have data for data's sake, it's actually used, and it's used to make changes on the ground. So that's probably one of the key things, to see that carrying on. Our big kind of red flag here is the EU Green Claims Directive that's coming our way. I think we're 2 years off it being implemented. So if you make a green claim in the EU now, you have to be able to substantiate it with scientific evidence. So that's where we feel all the measuring and the monitoring and the point of sale carbon and all of these, all the things you're doing are so important, because now you have the science to defend what you're doing. You can say we are sustainable, we are reducing water, and this is how we're doing it. And the EU Green Claims Directive is going to impact the whole landscape of tourism in the future. So keep an eye on that one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now, after we heard before the proposal of the Algarve to lead on water, I hope, James, Fiona, you let us know next year the advances on carbon at destination level, and you are attracting others to this exercise, because it's